Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a pivotal moment on India's political stage. A bill, grand in its promise, that has been waiting in the wings for nearly, what, 3 decades.
Almost,
We're
yeah.
talking about India's Women's Reservation Bill.
That's the one.
At its core, this legislation proposes reserving 33% of seats for women in India's Lok Sabha, which is their lower house of parliament, and also in the various state assemblies. Pretty straightforward on the surface.
Seems like it, yes.
But here's the truly intriguing part. After all these years of dormancy, why the sudden, lightning-fast push to pass this bill in September 2023?
Right, the timing is key.
Is this a genuine leap forward for gender equality, a long overdue fix, Or is it maybe a brilliantly timed political maneuver just before the next major election cycle?
That's the debate.
Our mission today is to embark on a deep dive into this intricate story. We'll explore its surprisingly long history, the stark numbers that highlight the need for it, the shrewd political calculations, and ultimately what this truly signifies for India's democracy and, well, for half its population.
It's quite remarkable how long this particular piece of legislation, formerly known as the Constitution 128th Amendment Bill 2023, has been, part of the political conversation.
The amendment part is significant, right? Changing the Constitution itself.
Exactly. It makes this reservation a constitutional mandate. And yeah, this idea of reserving seats for women, it's been circulating since 1996.
96, wow.
That's almost 30 years. It's been debated, shelved, revived, debated, again, a true political saga. It really seemed destined for, well, perpetual postponement. Yet in September 2023, something dramatically shifted. The current government decided to give this long dormant bill an unexpected new lease on life.
Against all odds, it sounds like.
Pretty much. It sailed through Parliament with incredible speed. The Lok Sabha, India's lower house, passed it with overwhelming support. What was it? 454 votes to just 2?
454 to 2. That's almost total consensus.
It is. And the Rajya Sabha, the upper house representing the states, gave it a unanimous thumbs up. So on the surface, this swift, decisive passage looks like a monumental step, doesn't it?
It certainly sounds impressive, that rapid passage. But when you look closer at the details, there's a critical nuance, isn't there?
There absolutely is.
Despite this seemingly grand gesture, this bill won't actually kick in until after the next delimitation exercise. And for anyone unfamiliar, delimitation is basically redrawing the election map, the constituency boundaries.
Correct. And that process right now is tied to India's long overdue census.
Right. So the practical implication here is that the implementation of this women's reservation bill could be delayed, potentially until 2029, maybe even later.
Potentially, yes. 2029 or beyond is the time frame most people are talking about.
And this delay, it doesn't seem accidental, does it? It feels like a calculated move, this rapid passage for something that won't happen for years.
Yeah.
It really begs the question, what are the theories? Why the rush now?
Well, the primary conclusion that many observers are drawing is that this timing strongly suggests a kind of dual motive.
Okay.
On one hand, it's a powerful political move. It aims to, garner support from women voters ahead of upcoming elections. And that's a demographic that's shown increasing engagement, increasing loyalty recently.
Makes sense.
But on the other hand, it strategically aligns the bill's actual implementation with that politically contentious redrawing of electoral maps, delimitation, a process that could have really significant implications for future elections.
Right. So connect the promise now with the potentially advantageous map drawing later.
That seems to be the thinking, yes.
And if we look at the numbers themselves, the representation figures,
Yeah.
they really underscore why this bill is needed, at least in principle.
Oh, absolutely. They paint a very stark picture. Consider the Lok Sabha 543 members of parliament. Out of all those seats, only 78 are currently held by women.
Just 78 out of 543.
That's a mere 14%. 14%. And if you think that's low, state assemblies, even more disproportionate. On average, women make up just 9% of legislators there.
9%. Wow.
And what's striking here is how India compares globally. The global average for women in parliaments is around 26%.
Okay, so India's well below average.
Way below. You've got countries like Rwanda at an astonishing 61%, Mexico at 50%, even neighboring Nepal clocks in at 33%. India at 14% is trailing behind many, many nations.
It's like hosting a democracy party and forgetting to invite half the population almost.
That's a good analogy, actually. It's not just numbers. It means a huge chunk of lived experience, of perspective, might not be adequately represented when laws are made.
Yeah, issues that affect women more or just need that different lens. They might get overlooked.
Exactly. Attention, funding, nuanced policymaking, it all suffers. It highlights a critical gap in India's democratic fabric.
So given these stark comparisons and the clear need for more women in power, let's talk about the how. How will this actually be implemented, and are there potential hiccups in the design?
Right. The bill states seats will be reserved on a rotational basis, so different constituencies get designated for women in each election cycle.
Okay, rotational. But here's where it gets interesting. Does this guarantee a truly diverse mix? Or could we just see political dynasties swapping, you know, male heirs for female ones, like meet our new candidate, Mrs. Politician's wife or daughter?
That's a very real concern. It raises that important question about genuine empowerment versus just, well, changing the nameplate on the door.
Exactly. Will it be real change or just optics?
So back to the timing. Why now? What was the immediate trigger for the government to suddenly push this through Parliament with such urgency?
Yeah, what's the thinking there?
Well, the ruling party, Prime Minister Modi's party, has consistently championed women's empowerment. It's been a cornerstone of their agenda. We've seen initiatives like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, Save the Daughter, Educate the Daughter, and the Ujwala scheme providing gas connections.
So they've actively courted women voters.
Very actively. And it's worked. Women have been turning out to vote in record numbers, sometimes even outpacing men. They're a crucial voting bloc.
Right.
Now, connect this to the broader political landscape. The 2024 Lok Sabha elections, they showed the ruling party's aura of invincibility wasn't quite absolute, right?
Right. They needed coalition partners, no clear majority on their own.
Exactly. So with the next general election in 2029 looming, crafting a new, compelling narrative becomes essential. The Women's Reservation Bill. It's a powerful, kind of feel-good policy. It resonates with a huge voter base,
while conveniently delaying the actual implementation until after the next big election.
Precisely. It ticks a box now, but the delivery is pushed down the road.
And the opposition, well, they're not buying it, are they?
Not entirely, no. They're voicing strong concerns. Leaders like Sonia Gandhi from Congress, Mamata Banerjee from Trinamool Congress, they've been quick to point to the fine print.
The fine print being?
No clear timeline, no immediate action, and that very significant link to delimitation.
It's like promising your kid a new toy, but saying it'll arrive after their birthday. Smart, maybe, but...
Yeah. Some even suggest a deeper motive, that the ruling party might use delimitation to redraw constituencies in its favor, boosting its chances in 2029.
So, using the promise of women's reservation as cover for strategic map-making.
That's the suspicion from some quarters, yes. They argued that while the sentiment is commendable, the delayed activation casts a shadow of doubt over the true intention. Is it genuine commitment or clever politics?
So let's focus on delimitation then. It seems absolutely pivotal here. Remind us what it is again.
Sure. Delimitation is essentially giving India's political map a makeover, redrawing electoral constituency boundaries to reflect population changes.
Making sure votes count equally, ideally.
That's the idea. It's critical for fair representation, but it's also incredibly contentious. The last time this really happened was back in 2002, based on the 2001 census. And the number of Lok Sabha seats was capped at 543.
And that cap was frozen for a while.
Right, frozen until 2026. The idea was to avoid penalizing states, mostly in the South, that had done a better job at population control.
Ah, right. But now the census itself is delayed.
Exactly. COVID, bureaucratic issues, it's overdue. So now the government is hinting at maybe a 2025 census to set the stage for this new delimitation.
Okay, and this is where the political implications get really intense, right?
Oh, doubly pronounced. A new delimitation based on current population trends could significantly increase the number of Lok Sabha seats. Some estimates go up to 700 or even more.
700. Wow. And that means power shifts.
Huge potential power shifts. Northern states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, they have booming populations. They could gain significantly more seats.
In the South.
Southern states like Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, the ones who controlled population growth, they fear their political influence, their representation in parliament could drastically shrink.
So it sparks this massive north-south tug of war.
Absolutely. Chief ministers like M.K. Stalin in Tamil Nadu, Siddaramaiah in Karnataka, they're raising strong objections. They see it as being penalized for progress.
It's like telling the South, thanks for controlling your population, here's a smaller slice of the power pie.
Pretty much. And there are concerns it could disproportionately benefit the ruling party's northern strongholds.
And then there's the caste angle, which is never far from the surface in Indian politics.
Never. The opposition has been demanding a caste-based census for ages to allocate quotas better, ensure fairer representation for different social groups.
Right?
So the ruling party's sudden enthusiasm for a census and maybe even a caste count alongside it, well, it's raised eyebrows.
So the question is this genuinely about social justice, getting accurate data for marginalized groups? Or is it another strategic move, maybe to stir up a sensitive debate for electoral gain?
That's the question many are asking. It's a complex mix of social realities and political strategy.
Okay, stepping back from the immediate politics, let's ask the big question. Will this bill truly empower women? Or is it just symbolic? India's track record, as you said, isn't great globally.
It's frankly quite embarrassing. Rwanda at 61%, Mexico 50%, Nepal 33%, India down at 14%. So yes, the potential for this bill to fundamentally change that landscape is huge.
And is there evidence that more women in power actually makes a difference?
Absolutely. The good news is women in Indian politics have already shown they can drive significant change. Think of historical figures like Indira Gandhi or current leaders like Mamata Banerjee. They've often challenged the status quo, even outperformed male counterparts.
Okay.
And local governance provides really compelling evidence. Panchayats, local village councils, where they already have reservation, sometimes up to 50%.
Right, that's existed for a while.
It has. And we've seen female sarpanches, village heads, tackling crucial issues, water, education, sanitation with incredible effectiveness. Studies actually show women-led panchayats invest more in public goods.
So they're not just filling seats, they're genuinely making a difference on the ground.
Exactly. They prioritize community needs differently, often more effectively.
But there's always a but, isn't there? There's the less encouraging side.
There is. Political parties sometimes, well, they treat women as proxies. And some panchayats, for instance, you get what people call sarpanch patis.
Sarpanch Baptiste?
Yeah, basically husbands running the show while their wives are just the official signatories on paper.
Ah, so the woman holds the title, but the man holds the power.
That can happen. So if this bill is to truly work as intended at the national and state level, parties need to field women candidates who are leaders in their own right, not just figureheads.
And that means tackling deeper issues.
Definitely. Systemic issues. The lack of adequate funding for women candidates, which is a huge barrier,
Look.
the often entrenched sexist party structures, and just that pervasive boys' club culture that still exists in much of Indian politics.
So we're talking about giving women a seat at the table, but the real question is, will it be a seat to actually lead the conversation and shape policy, or just to be seen?
That's the core challenge, yes, beyond the numbers.
And this whole situation, it puts the opposition in a really awkward spot, doesn't it? A political pickle.
It really does. On one hand, they've demanded women's reservation for years, so opposing the bill outright, that makes them look incredibly hypocritical.
Can't really do that.
But on the other hand, they are deeply skeptical of the ruling party's motives, especially with that big delay tied to delimitation.
So what are they doing?
Well, Congress, for example, has called for immediate implementation, no waiting for the limitation. And they're also demanding sub-quotas within the 33% for other backward classes, OBCs, and minorities.
Adding another layer of complexity.
Right. And regional leaders, people like Akhilesh Yadav or Mamata Banerjee, they're clearly wary of the ruling party's broader agenda, especially the delimitation part. There's this palpable sense of distrust. It's like being invited to a feast but suspecting the food might be spiked.
Good analogy.
So, beyond the bill itself, this whole saga is a powerful reminder of how India's democracy is, well, constantly evolving. This isn't just about gender.
No, touches everything.
It's intrinsically linked to broader questions of representation, federalism, the balance of power between the center and states, and the very fabric of power in India.
And a more diverse parliament could genuinely shake things up.
It could truly challenge the status quo, bring fresh perspectives on everything from healthcare to economic policy, climate change, you name it. But it also stirs up those inherently thorny questions about caste, region, religion, things that are always deeply interwoven into Indian political dynamics. It's never simple.
So the ruling party's move could be a masterstroke or a huge miscalculation.
Exactly. If they genuinely deliver meaningful women's representation, they might win over a huge segment of voters long term. But if it's seen as a hollow promise, just optics, political posturing, they could face a significant backlash.
And the opposition.
Their challenge is clear. They need to present a united front, a coherent alternative vision. going beyond just criticism.
It really feels like the 2029 elections are already shaping up to be a blockbuster, and this women's reservation bill is just the opening act.
That's a great way to put it. The stage is definitely being set.
So where does this leave us? The women's reservation bill is undeniably a significant step forward for India. It's landmark legislation, you can't deny that.
Agreed. Historic, in principle.
But in many ways, its ultimate impact hinges entirely on implementation, doesn't it?
Completely. The true test, like with so many things in politics, is how effectively this grand promise translates into tangible change on the ground.
Will the government stick to its word? Ensure genuine, timely transformation? Or will this become another case of, jolly promise, dear deliver, a quick promise, slow delivery? The census, the delimitation, the actual seat allocation. These are all crucial pieces of an incredibly complex puzzle. Any misstep could derail the whole thing.
Absolutely. The devil is truly in those details and in the political will to follow through.
Which brings us back to a fundamental question, really.
Yeah.
What does true, meaningful representation actually look like in a democracy? Is it just about hitting a number, a quota, making sure a certain percentage of seats are filled?
Or is it something deeper?
Right. Or does it demand a deeper, more fundamental shift in political culture, where women aren't just present, but are truly empowered to lead, to innovate, to actually transform the political landscape?
It forces us, and you listening, to consider what genuine commitment to inclusion really entails. Beyond the headlines, beyond all the political theatrics we've been talking about.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. But one thing's for sure. The road to 2029 and potentially beyond for this bill's implementation is going to be one heck of a ride. So stay curious. Keep watching.
Definitely keep watching. Thanks for breaking that all down.
My pleasure. It's a fascinating ongoing story.